A giant monster has been spotted in Udon Thani, Thailand. The entire city is on the brink of destruction. Prehistoric dinosaurs also cross time and space, appearing in a futuristic city 200 years later. A mishap in time travel has caused chaos in the timeline of the universe. Can they reset everything to protect their home? The latest sci-fi film Takli Genesis is officially online. Without further ado, let's get started. In a remote village, a girl named Tara is participating with her mother in the annual mysterious ceremony. Tara couldn't help but ask about the origin of the ceremony, and her mother explained that it comes from an ancient legend. It is said that there is a magical ring in the Eastern Sea, which can bring prosperity and wealth to the villagers. However, those who obtain the ring will soon be controlled by greedy desires. They will fight to seize the ring, ultimately leading to its destruction. The sea witch was furious, and she killed all those who fought for the ring. She also cast a curse of hunger on our village, causing the land to become barren. Therefore, villagers must hold a sacrificial ceremony every year to offer sacrifices to the sea witch. Tara was influenced by her father John to firmly believe in science. She felt that the barren land had nothing to do with the witch. But where did the missing offerings go? Before leaving, Tara curiously glanced at the village chief, and late at night, she noticed her father going out alone. The skeptical John returned to the sacrificial site, wanting to see who was playing tricks. Unexpectedly, John actually encountered an ugly monster, which was gnawing on the offerings prepared by the villagers. John was so frightened that he collapsed to the ground, and by the time he came to his senses, the monster had vanished. Instead, Tara quietly emerged from behind a tree. John was worried about his daughter following him on this adventure. He hid her in a cabin in the woods. John handed Tara a walkie-talkie, and went alone deeper into the woods to investigate. He quickly discovered a strange glowing device, so John leaned in to take a closer look. The terrifying monster reappeared, and the next second, the ring began to stir. The monster, frightened, dashed deep into the forest, and the ring emitted a blinding white light. By the time Tara ran over to find him, her father had already vanished. A shadow fell from the sky. Tara thought it was her father and hurried over. However, the person on the ground was not John, but a strange corpse. Immediately after, countless corpses fell, like fallen leaves. Sobbing, Tara fled the forest, and when she woke up, she rushed to find her father. But the village chief and her mother said that John had run away, and he eloped with other women in a truck. You fainted because you were chasing the truck. The ring, the white light, the falling corpses, are all just a dream you had while denying reality. Though Tara was young, she was not foolish, and she refused to believe the village chief's words. Years passed in the blink of an eye, and Tara never returned to the village. She devoted herself to science just like her father. But ideals are beautiful while reality is cruel. This job had not improved her life. Tara had just divorced her husband and was struggling financially, and her lease was up, forcing her to move out. She had to take her daughter Valen to a fast food restaurant to rest. Tara was unwilling to admit defeat and seek help from her ex-husband, when suddenly someone from her hometown called to say that her mother had fainted. Tara has nowhere to stay now, so she decided to take her daughter back to her hometown. The mother and daughter first went to the hospital to visit Tara's grandmother, because Valen was just like Tara when she was young. So the old lady mistook her granddaughter for her daughter. She had a high fever and her condition was not optimistic. Tara advised her mother to rest quietly. She went home first to deal with the land inheritance issues, as the village chief wanted to buy their land to continue farming, and he offered much more than the market price. Tara agreed to think it over, and the village chief's son Dean called out to Tara, saying that he had fixed the motorcycle from her hometown. Strangely enough, Dean hadn't aged at all over the years. When Tara was a child, being mixed race, she often faced harassment from the village children. Fortunately, Dean helped her during that time. In Tara's memory, he always seemed to be in his youthful form. It was as if he had eternal youth. In the evening, Tara found the walkie-talkie left by her father, and she couldn't help but want to test it. But there was still no response from the channel. Feeling dejected, Tara set down the walkie-talkie and accompanied her daughter to bed to rest. In the middle of the night, the walkie-talkie suddenly transmitted John's voice, and Valen quickly woke her mother up. Tara hurriedly grabbed the walkie-talkie, and her father was repeatedly stating a set of coordinates. She rushed to find paper and a pen to write it down, but the voice on the walkie-talkie soon disappeared. Fortunately, Valen was very clever, and she recorded the coordinates on her phone. The next day, Tara went to the hospital to find her mother, only to learn that for some time now, every year, John's voice would come through the walkie-talkie. He said he had fallen into another dimension. Time there passes more slowly than on Earth. So John is actually in contact with his wife and daughter every day. He mentioned in the walkie-talkie that as long as she wears the bracelet and goes to the Eastern Sea to find the magical ring and uses the coordinates he provided to activate the device in the basement of the Ramazan military camp, John will be able to return to Earth. Tara immediately realized that the magical ring referred to the glowing circle. The Eastern Sea referred to the blue vortex that appeared on the day the corpses fell from the sky. She assured her mother that she would find a way to rescue her father. As for the bracelet that John mentioned, it should refer to the chief's bracelet. He brings it out to wear during each ceremony, and he never allows outsiders to touch it. Tara and her friends wanted to ask Dean to steal the bracelet. Dean was naturally reluctant, as he would be in trouble if his father found out. Tara had no choice but to ask him, "Aren't you curious why you and your father haven't aged at all over the years? And the village chief has always been like taking care of a child, not letting you go anywhere. If we can use the bracelet to solve the mystery, perhaps we can help you regain your freedom." Dean was indeed tempted by her words. That night, he quietly took the bracelet from his father's bedside, and then met up with Tara. They headed to the sacrificial forest together, while Valen stayed in the car alone, waiting. She felt that someone was lurking in the shadows, and Valen couldn't help but call her mother for help. But Tara told her daughter to wait patiently, saying she would be back soon. Just after hanging up the phone, Valen saw the figure of a woman. Meanwhile, the three of them quickly discovered the floating ring, and Dean pulled out his father's handgun for protection. He had taken it while stealing the bracelet. Tara brought the bracelet close to the ring, but unexpectedly, the device shrank directly into a metal sphere. It slowly descended into Tara's palm. At this critical moment, the strange woman approached. And she was the monster that John had seen in the woods back then. Tara grabbed the metal sphere, and the strange woman instantly vanished. The protective shield surrounding the forest gradually dissipated as well. The three of them were just about to leave, when unexpectedly, the terrifying monster reappeared. Dean vaguely recalled some bad memories, and the two quickly helped him into the car. They started the car and fled the scene, and unexpectedly saw the village chief's car. However, Tara didn't stop, but they hurriedly headed towards the Ramazan military camp. The three of them navigated through the empty hall, and climbed down the ladder into the underground space. They indeed found a giant device, and Tara opened a box on the table, and found a circular groove inside. She removed the bracelet and placed it in the groove, and the next second, John's voice came through the walkie-talkie. Through the conversation between father and daughter, it became clear that John was actually a CIA agent. His mission was to return the equipment of the Tech Origin project, but John made a mistake during the operation, which caused the prototype to transport him to a certain abandoned space station. John had only been there for about 30 minutes, but several years had passed on Earth. During that time, he had been trying to contact Tara, and now the ship's fuel was almost depleted, and the oxygen would run out in 20 minutes. John asked Tara if she remembered the code he taught her, which she could use to call for help on the pager. Tara replied that since the night he went missing, no one had answered that code, and as long as you tell me how, I can also bring you back. But father said it wasn't that simple. The Tech Origin project uses alien technology to conduct experiments for faster-than-light travel. The device consists of two components. One is a control bracelet, and the other is a working sphere. If you want to use it, you must wear the bracelet to connect it to your wrist. The working sphere operates through 5 rings. The first ring is for gravity control, which allows manipulation of gravity during time travel. The second ring is a communication module that handles quantum entanglement, enabling real-time communication faster than light. The third ring connects to the thumb of the bracelet wearer, and is used to set the travel time. The last 2 rings represent the galactic longitude and latitude, controlled by the index and middle fingers of the bracelet wearer, determining the coordinates for travel. With the bracelet and the working sphere, you can travel to any place and any time. Due to an accident with the last traveler, the device was damaged, and several important fragments were lost, causing the gravity control and other functions to fail. They must find these fragments to restore the device to normal operation. Tara quickly asked her father if he knew where the fragments had fallen. John stated that the gravity control ring fell on Sudan 5,000 years before the birth of Christ. This means that only through time travel can they gather these fragments. Hearing this, Tara was about to ask, if the device is incomplete, how can we travel to Sudan thousands of years ago? John explained that the key parts of the device had not been lost, and that time travel was still possible. After you gather all the fragments, you can use the coordinates I gave you to find me. Then John instructed his daughter to stand in the open area with a radius of 5 meters. Next, she was to use the bracelet to activate the working sphere. After a blinding flash of white light, the three were transported to Sudan. A group of bare-chested people appeared, and friends happily waved to them. Could this be the legendary cavemen? However, these people looked more like zombies than cavemen. Some shouted for help and ran toward the nearby tribe, but the leading friend ran into a protective shield. In a critical moment, Tara used the bracelet to break through the shield. She led everyone into a safe area. There are huge rocks floating over the tribe, apparently due to the gravity control ring falling here. It had automatically generated a protective barrier, and the trapped primitive residents were unable to leave. As food and water sources were about to run out, they all knelt on the ground, pleading for help from Tara and her group of visitors from beyond. The protagonists were seen as deities by these people. These phenomena could barely be explained. But why were there zombies 5,000 years ago, Director? At this moment, Tara thought of a serious problem. If we take away the gravity control ring, won't these primitives be bitten to death by zombies? Her friends noticed her inner turmoil, and quickly reassured Tara. History has already told us that these primitive people were destined to go extinct. The gravity control ring shouldn't exist 5,000 years ago. Taking it away is the right choice. Moreover, even if we don't take it now, people in the future will take it away too. Dean put on the bracelet and took out the working sphere, and the gravity control ring indeed responded. It instantly returned to the working sphere, and the original barrier collapsed as well. The zombies outside immediately sprang into action, and the primitives scattered in all directions. A woman grabbed Valen and hid her away. Tara didn't see her daughter, and she anxiously searched for her. Valen heard her mother's calls, and she fought her way free from the woman to run out. A zombie charged and knocked Tara down. In a moment of crisis, a primitive person stabbed it to death with a sharpened stick. However, there were too many zombies, and those who were bitten quickly became infected. They had to leave as soon as possible. Dean and his friends quickly gathered to activate the working sphere. Tara ran over with her daughter, when another zombie appeared. Fortunately, that primitive person kept helping, and in her struggle, Tara knocked over a tent. The working sphere was about to begin the transfer, and Tara finally ran over with her daughter just in time. But the primitive person suddenly shouted that Tara had actually grabbed the wrong child. The primitive's child had followed them back to the modern world, while Valen was left behind in 100 years ago. You say, how big of a mess can a person make? She could even mistake her own child, because the working sphere was incomplete. She could only transfer herself to the location where the fragments were lost. Now that they had recovered the gravity control ring, they couldn't traverse back to the previous time and place. The urgent task was to quickly gather the fragments, so that they could go anywhere they wanted. They would definitely be able to rescue Valen. John indicated that the time ring fragments fell 200 years later, and just as they were about to take action, the village chief suddenly chased after them. He told his son to quickly return the bracelet, and added that they had no idea what had happened in the past 10 years. The three looked at each other in confusion. We clearly left less than an hour ago. Unexpectedly, everywhere they looked was a wasteland. Because Dean stole the bracelet, the entire village had perished. Tara's mother also couldn't escape the disaster. But the protagonists had no intention of returning the bracelet. Tara pleaded with the village chief for some time, promising that once everything was done, she would restore everything to its original state. Dean rushed over and grabbed his father, and friends stepped in to help hold the village chief back. Tara activated the bracelet to start the working sphere, while Dean held on tightly to his father. Tara travels with friends and primitive children to the future 200 years later. Unexpectedly, they were surrounded by a group of armed men. Tara spotted another working sphere in midair, and instinctively hid her own. The next second, Tara was knocked unconscious from behind. When they woke up, they found themselves locked in a dimly lit room. Their hands and feet were chained, but the primitive child was nowhere to be found. A woman with dyed hair told them not to worry, saying they wouldn't harm the child. All they needed was for them to tell everyone how to control the working sphere. It was then that Tara realized the sphere in her hand was gone. She questioned the dyed-haired woman. Since you have your own working sphere, why did you steal mine? The dyed-haired woman explained that the working sphere in our hands was just a replica created based on old mainland textbooks, and didn't have the capabilities of the original prototype. If you don't help us, everyone will die. It turned out that a giant monster had destroyed this city, and the ancestors had rebuilt Oolong Thani from the rubble. The Western Allied nations were also supporting them from behind. However, they quickly colluded with the capital's industrialists to steal all the resources from Oolong Thani. The dyed-haired woman and experts from various fields voluntarily formed a resistance organization, and they united to fight against the capital. But one day, a massive explosion occurred above Oolong Thani. The sky was filled with the 2165 black hole. It was a catastrophic disaster, and the capital only evacuated their loyalists. Now, only the resistance organization remained, staying behind to fight against the monsters spreading from the black hole. Just when the resistance was in despair, they discovered the time ring fragments. The dyed-haired woman checked the records, and found that Oolong Thani had faced catastrophic changes multiple times. The Origin project could even be traced back to the Vietnam War. The Genesis experiment of the US military was deeply buried under the Ramzan barracks, so the resistance organization found the old laboratory, and they used the remaining technology and resources to reverse engineer the machines. They spent a lot of time and effort to rebuild the working sphere, hoping to use the time portal to leave this place. But decades passed, and the resistance organization still had no success. Moreover, because of that fragment, they remained youthful as if cursed. The dyed-haired woman hoped Tara could help them leave. After the incident was completed, the resistance organization would return the homework ball. They gave Tara one night to consider. The scene shifts to Dean, who accidentally injures his father during their struggle. The village chief told his son not to feel guilty, as he might feel that he couldn't hold on much longer. He planned to share a story from the past with Dean. In 1964, American soldiers established the Ramazan camp in Thailand. They tortured prisoners and suspects to gather military intelligence, but in reality, the camp was built to conduct time travel experiments. The village chief was captured along with a girl named Lavin. She was the daughter of a Laotian general, and Lavin was educated and spoke English, so she learned how to use the devices made by the Americans. To save their lives, they planned to steal the Genesis machine and escape from the evil camp. The village chief pretended to be sick to draw attention, while Lavin seized the opportunity to activate the working sphere. They traversed through various worlds, but the pursuing enemies from the lab followed closely behind. Lavin was unfortunately shot by a bullet, and the village chief fought off some of the enemies, then continued to traverse with her. Unexpectedly, the pursuers activated a bomb, which resulted in the black hole incident in Oolong Thani. In the end, the two successfully escaped the Americans' pursuit, landing in this backward little village. At that time, the working sphere was destroyed, and the village chief used the bracelet to assemble the remaining parts. The working sphere created a force field that distorted objects in time. By coincidence, it saved Lavin's life, but her DNA was affected. Lavin often transformed into a black hole monster. It turned out that the mysterious woman in the woods was Lavin. The two settled in the village. As the Vietnam War gradually came to a close, the US military would soon withdraw from Southeast Asia, and they used the time portal to cover up the atrocities of the massacre. They disposed of the bodies in the wilderness. The village chief discovered Dean, who was not quite dead yet. He took him in under the name of his father, and due to memory impairment, Dean never questioned his own identity. The village chief also lived incognito in the village, using the energy of the working sphere to protect Lavin. He also fed her under the guise of a ritual. Meanwhile, Tara agreed to help the resistance activate the working sphere. However, when it was activated again, the time ring fragments would be affected, and the barrier protecting everyone from the black hole would vanish. As everyone prepared to activate the working sphere, a massive dinosaur monster was transported in. At the same time, the barrier in the sky was also failing. Now there were both dinosaurs and bombs, and they could only pause their travel to save their lives. Tara used the capabilities of the working sphere to assist the tattooed man in shooting the monster dead. And when the people in the capital saw that the barrier in Oolong Thani had failed, they immediately fired bombs at this place. The tattooed man felt they should no longer run away, and wanted to stay and fight to avenge the dead. Tara didn't understand why the tattooed man wanted to seek death. saying, "We can leave together through the working sphere." The dyed-haired woman then apologized to Tara. "I'm sorry, I lied to you. In fact, the machine we created can also be activated. But each time it is activated, it will cause a collapse of causal relationships." The dyed-haired woman thought that the prototype machine in Tara's hands wouldn't cause this issue. When the prototype machine was activated, a dinosaur suddenly appeared as well. This was clearly caused by the collapse of causal relationships. The dyed-haired woman was indeed not wrong, because this activation not only transported a dinosaur, but also brought Valen and the primitive woman to the modern era. In 20 minutes, the US Army will launch nuclear weapons at Ulang Thani to eliminate all monsters. Tara urged the dyed-haired woman not to give up. Since the working sphere has appeared in this era, it must have a significance for its existence. We will definitely find a way to save everyone. The group returned to the underground laboratory, and the dyed-haired woman took out the upgraded quantum entanglement ring, saying, "It can rearrange the chaotic timeline." Then she brought up a set of visuals, showing the ripples caused by time travel. The cosmic timeline has been disrupted, and Tara must wear the bracelet to return to the Ramazan military camp 200 years ago, to reset the entire timeline. This way, everything will return to the past, back to the state before the chaos. Your past will not change, but the future will be unknown. This is the best outcome for everyone.
แต่การมีหวังมันทำให้ชีวิตของเรามีความหมายแล้วหนูก็จะไม่ปล่อยโอกาสนี้ไปแน่
This is something Tara's mother often said. Could it be that the dyed-haired woman is the grown-up Valen? Time waits for no one, and Tara took immediate action. Her friends were willing to stay and help the resistance. Tara returned to the original timeline with the time ring, and she saw Dean slumped on the ground. He was still holding the galactic longitude fragment that his father had given him.
ทำไมเราไม่ย้อนเวลากลับไปช่วยทุกคนไป
เราทำแบบนั้นไม่ได้เรายิ่งใช้มันความเป็นเหตุเป็นผลของจักรวาล
The two assembled the fragments, but Dean disregarded Tara's warnings and returned to the school before the massacre broke out. Dean wanted to save his friends. At this moment, a gunfight had erupted in the school, and Dean remembered he had been shot in this hallway. They ducked to avoid the bullets, and the chaotic time portal revealed images of Valen and the primitive woman. However, the portal quickly disappeared. Enemy bullets killed Dean's classmates, and he was unwilling to fail like this. Ein activated the working sphere again, to return a few minutes earlier, leading his friends to escape once more. Frequent activations of the portal resulted in an increasingly chaotic timeline. From the friends' side, they heard the broadcast during the university massacre, as the capital's artillery shells attacking Ulang Thani directly passed through the portal to the massacre site. The downed fighter jets also crossed timelines, falling into Dean's campus. If this continued, the universe would be completely in chaos. Dean finally gave up resisting. Since history wouldn't change easily, he shouldn't be an exception either. Dean returned the bracelet to Tara, and he prepared to stay and face it with his friends. Tara had to leave with the primitive child, and they arrived at the location where Valen was. Although the girl was safe, the primitive mother had been bitten and infected by zombies. In order to protect Valen, with her last bit of sanity, she said goodbye to her son. As the US atomic bomb was about to be launched, Tara took the two children back to the military camp. Exhausted, she handed the bracelet to her daughter. At the moment of crisis, the monster that Lavan transformed into came charging. Fortunately, Valen was very strong, and she successfully activated the complete Genesis device. Under John's guidance, the timeline was reset and returned to normal, and everyone was in their rightful place. They welcomed the best outcome. Although Tara didn't keep her promise to find her father, she restored the causality that had been disrupted by Lavan and the village chief. She allowed the universe to continue functioning normally. The film ends here. It unfolds from the conflict between science and faith, gradually revealing the truth behind the ritual legends. The overall concept is somewhat interesting, and the special effects are decent. However, the plot is chaotic and the logic does not hold up. It can only be enjoyed for fun, not examined too deeply. All in all, it is just a visually appealing film wrapped in a sci-fi disguise.